For those that are online, we are waiting to get started, hopefully on time, but you're in the right place for the CARES Act Allocation Committee. Online, we are waiting to get started, hopefully on time, place for the CARES Act Allocation Committee.
Go find somebody else.
It is probably like a 10-foot strip and probably about
All right, it's 3 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'll call the CARES Act Allocation Committee meeting to order. Ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Hanson. Kenyon.
Kenyon here.
Braz.
Braz here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Surges.
Surges here.
Thomas.
Here.
O'Shea.
All right, thank you. We have a quorum. First item of business is approval of our October 8th minutes. Can I have a motion? Mr. Frost moves, Mr. Kenyon seconds. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Hanson.
Hanson, yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Braz. Sanchez.
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Public comment, we have one person signed up to speak. Janine Kanigieser, is that correct?
That is,
Hi. So you're attending the media or the meeting via our conference call. So you can certainly address the committee, and you've got 3 minutes. So go ahead.
Janine, you're still on mute. I accidentally remuted you as I was trying to unmute you.
thank you. My name is Janine Kanigieser. I'm the director. Oh,
Janine, I see you muted again. You should be good. Try talking.
I'm here.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Janine, can you hear us?
Hanson. Yes. Sanchez.
Yes.
Sturgis.
Sturgis, yes.
Thomas. Yes.
Janine, are you hearing the people in the room?
Janine, the playback you're listening to is not, it's about 30-second delayed. So please just listen to your phone or your computer, but turn off the live stream from YouTube.
I am. I feel as though I'm hearing the meeting and I'm supposed to be talking. Okay. So this is Janine Kanigieser. I'm the Director of Corporate and Foundation Giving. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm hearing.
Turn off, close the window that has the YouTube live stream. You should only be looking at the Zoom window.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm a little challenged here. I'm working on closing the YouTube. I think I have it closed now. So my name is Janine Kanigieser. I'm the Director of Corporate and Foundation Giving at Northern Illinois Food Bank. And I wanted to address this committee today to request that we revise the budget that we have submitted for consideration to remove the expenses that occurred in March through June 2020. Finance is a little concerned about reopening the audit should we receive funding to reimburse those expenses, and to instead put in a request for food funding to assist us with purchasing food to serve our agencies and programs in Kane County. We work with 171 network members throughout the county, including 28 food pantries, 9 soup kitchens, and 4 group homes and shelters. 55 backpack sites and 75 youth program sites. We are distributing overall about 50% more food every month right now through all of our programs across our 13 counties. And here in Kane County, we've increased food distribution 19% over last year in the first quarter of the new fiscal year. I have updated the budget forms and could address them to whichever member of the committee you all would like me to address them to, or upload them to the website if you would be willing to consider changing the way that the food bank is reimbursed for coronavirus related expenses. We're doing similar work with the other counties that are receiving CARES funding, purchasing food that goes on the shopping list for our agencies at 0 shared maintenance fee, and also purchasing food for the pop-up and mobile pantry distributions across the county.
So let me ask you a question. It's my understanding that you currently have an application that was submitted and in the amount of roughly $642,000. That's correct. Are you suggesting or asking that entire application be withdrawn?
No, I just want to revise the budget so that, we would be requesting fewer expenses to be reimbursed from that March 1st to September 30th time period. We wouldn't be asking for reimbursement of anything that was paid during our last fiscal year. Instead, only asking for reimbursement of expenses that have occurred since July 1st.
So the expenses that you suggested you would still want to be considered for are within the $642,000 that was originally requested?
Correct. We would just be using, rather than paying, our bond interest and utilities from March through June, we would be putting that amount of funding, which is about $276,000, towards purchasing food for distribution in Kane County to serve Kane County residents who are at increased risk of hunger because of the COVID.
All right, so even though this is in the discussion part of the agenda, I think the committee would like to see your request in writing if it's a reduced request and the amount that you're seeking reimbursement for is already in that request. It's simply a modification to reduce the amount. I don't see that that would be a significant issue for the committee, but if you can put, I want to make sure that we understand so that there is no misunderstanding completely what your request is. And if you would be willing to submit that to our staff, we'll certainly consider that at our meeting. One of the things that I plan on doing today is setting up a meeting as we finish the final vetting of the not-for-profit applications. If we can get that letter from you today, if possible, that would be great. And then we'll have our meeting either later this week or early next week and hopefully have a decision.
Okay, and I just want to be clear that we're not reducing the amount of money that we're asking for, because we are asking for funding for food, which was not within, in our initial reading of your RFP was.
Right, so you're seeking to do two things then. Number
Yes.
one, modify your original application to cut out some expenditures that you sought reimbursement for, but you're asking to supplement it with an additional request.
We are. And so, I'm not sure if you want me to,
Why don't you go ahead and put that in writing and then we can evaluate that as a committee going forward.
Okay, we would really appreciate your consideration. And because this is, purchasing food, that we understand we need to purchase and receive before the end of December. I just would like a little clarification on the timeline for a decision on whether the food expense would be approved by this committee.
All right, and that's yet to be determined, but
Okay.
if you stay tuned, you'll hopefully have an answer by the end of the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
All right, we'll look forward to you receiving your letter.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Oh, and should I submit it through the website?
No,
should I be
to
sending to?
Fabiola Guzman, who is our program administrator, is the one who would be the one to send it to.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public comment for this meeting? Mr. Chairman?
Just a clarification. The lady who just spoke, from which organization was she?
Northern Illinois Food Bank. Right.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, on to discussion items, status of funds. Mr. Rickard here? Yes. Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Carlos from the Treasurer's Office. Unfortunately, Mr. Rickard is not available, but I was given balances at the end of September, any breakdowns that need to be towed for ending balance as of today, October. I believe I'm supposed to give out these funds from the end of September and our end of October as of right now.
All right, do you want to do that?
Sure. So I believe, let's see here, the end of September balance is $84,603,584.31. And as we stand at today, the new total is $82,636,877.22. Did we need any breakdown of what those distributions were?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Any, and interest continues to accrue and go into the fund contingency.
Everything is the same as normal.
All right. Any questions for our treasurer? Ms. Thomas?
I would like the breakdown.
Sure. So according to the auditor's approval and everything that was done for accounts payable, there was a run of October 15th, $43,054.60, which is within invoices. There was a October 13th, it looks like resolution 20-335 for $1,923,603. And also in that same 1013 run, there was IT small invoice COVID relief for $49.49, which leaves us with our new balance.
Would you be willing to share that breakdown with the committee?
Sure, I'll make sure we submit it.
So if we have any questions, we can
Definitely.
follow up on those. All right. Any other questions regarding the status of funds? Mr. Hanson?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Is there an anticipated special run? I'm sorry. If we, in our past series of meetings, we approved allocations to other units of government, municipalities, fire protection districts. And I know that may still be working through the paperwork process, but is there an anticipated special distribution of that, a special run, I believe Dave described it as?
I want to say right now at this moment with Joe or who's actually in charge of it, everything is being submitted, and it's going, as far as I've heard, there's going to be a run shortly. It looks like 2,000 checks that are going to be cut within all these, but we don't know at this time what is approved, what has been submitted, or what the time frame is for cutting these checks that so far are in the process of being submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, application process and time frame. This is really kind of an old business issue. I think all the applications have been submitted. Fabiola, do you want to?
Yes, so all of the approximately 60 government applications have been processed and approved for eligibility. IGAs went out last week. We are in the process of receiving those IGAs back and reporting back to each individual applicant with specific instructions and documentation requests for the request for reimbursement for each one of them to submit before the monies are dispersed for the government applications. As far as the non-for-profits, we have reviewed all applications. There were about 48 applications. We had a total allocation of $2 million. The amount submitted was $3,700,814.77. Of that, eligible is $187,283.74. We have a couple outstanding documents that are necessary, but this amount is final as of the eligibility. As of Friday, those will be presented to the committee once we decide on a date to come back and review the allocation. The small business applications, there were a total of 251. Some of those were duplicates. So far of the 121 that have been reviewed, there is an eligible amount of $1,680,000. Submitted was $3,991,460.05, which leaves an unawarded amount of $6,320,000. Those are still being reviewed. That's another topic of discussion for later on in the meeting. As of Friday, we have approved for disbursement a payroll total of $18,058,399 and a total of the non-payroll, both past and future, of $5,960,000 901.85, which brings it to, again, $24,019,385 that are ready to be paid out to the county.
All right. All right, let me just back up for a second to give a big picture perspective. Those numbers that were presented are really to the, I guess, to the minute now, but since our last meeting, there's been a lot of work that has gone on. you recall in the prior meetings, the initial round of reviews or evaluations were for the municipal and other governmental entity applications. Those have been completed and vetted. The intergovernmental agreement's out for signature. I know that because I've looked at some of the municipal agendas, and voting to approve the intergovernmental agreement's been on the municipal agenda. So as those get signed and back here and they turn in the money, then we can talk about a batch for payment for them.
Correct.
Everything's in place to get that done. At the same time, then, we had submitted applications for not-for-profits that came in. We had the business grant applications that came in, and we had the county requests for funding, which were really broken down into two components. One is wages and the other is non-wages, essentially. And some were, and those were even broken down into two categories: expended to date and future expenditures through the end of the year. The most complicated application process, not from the application itself, but from staff time and consultant time, has been the business grants because of the level of sophistication of the applicants and the fact that as the applications came in, there were a number of them that required additional information to make their applications complete. Because of the importance of the county budget getting completed and having the ability to have confidence that the numbers we used in the budget were accurate, we directed staff and consultant to focus first on the county side, not to the detriment of the other programs, but county was priority because to the extent we were going to have a major deviation in what we expected to have become reimbursable, we needed to know that as we're going through the budget approval process. As it relates to the wage component of the county request, Mr. Onzik had submitted, and I want to say in phases, the requests as he was gathering the information. And as he's submitted those requests, they've been turned around and approved without exception, as I understand it, almost within 24 to 48 hours.
Correct.
I know that there may be one more batch to get done, or I'm not sure, or Joe is here. Have you turned in everything on the payroll side yet, or is there future payroll that still has to be submitted?
The future payroll, obviously we can't submit until it's been completed. We have an estimate that's been submitted and approved,
Okay.
but the exact amount will
Won't come back.
later.
So, but in terms of information then that we needed to get through the pipeline on the wage side, the county's given everything it can so far. And it's
Yes,
all
and-
been approved to your
And
satisfaction.
it has, so our expectations have been met, so
All right.
that's excellent.
So our budget assumptions, which the bulk of what we requested was wages.
Yes,
The budget assumptions that we've made in relation to receiving those funds is consistent with what we expected.
yes, it is.
All right, so that's a major hurdle that we're over. Now, on the other side, the non-wage items, they really break down into three categories. There's the sheriff's office, the health department, and IT. And initially, those were a little bit more complicated because as we use our consultant, we want the consultant to give us feedback that indicates whether the funding of the request would be something that would be audit worthy and pass the criteria. Now, that process has been going on. Last week, Roger Onzik had from the IT department, there was correspondence back and forth. There were a few items that were, I don't want to say questioned, but required additional information. There was about an hour-long plus webinar or give and take between the consultant and Roger last week. And it's my understanding that with the exception of a few I-dotting and T-crossing documents coming back for some fairly small dollar amounts, that we're satisfied that the IT requests have all been vetted and essentially approved.
The KEB, given the priority for the county is payroll, is still reviewing. They should be getting that to me either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay, but at least there wasn't any pushback on it, and they were very, and Roger did a great job, and they were comfortable with the explanations that were given there. On the health department and the sheriff's office, there are similarly some components of their requests that have met with approval. That there's others that require additional feedback. And it's my understanding that similar discussions are ongoing with the hope that we can have those either decided one way or another. Now, ultimately, the outcome is going to be that either everything gets approved, or to the extent that certain components don't get approved, we're going to get that feedback. And they may be gray area items, and then the board is going to have to decide on its own whether we want to authorize those expenditures with the information we have. The consultant's blessing is technically not a condition precedent to us expending those funds. Ideally, we would have that, but the goal is to narrow it down to those that are questionable, if there are any, and then we have to make a decision. And we would expect that feedback within the next week or so.
For the health department, I think, I didn't check my email, but finance was in the final review of their last batch of health department submissions. So that is still out there for me to send to the consultant. So we're doing it department by department. So once we
Right.
get the health department and IT done, then we'll move on to the sheriff's
Okay.
expenses.
Well, yeah, I would just urge you to continue on, because if the sheriff, I mean, the sheriff could have some items that we need further discussion, and the sooner we can get those taken care of, the better.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now that process is, I'd say we're 75%, maybe 80% of the way there on the county side.
Yes.
And that's really the work that, the bulk of the work that's been done since we met last. What correspondingly, though, the not-for-profit applications as submitted, at least, were vetted, and there was a breakdown of qualified versus not qualified, and I think the ink is still drying on that, so that's why we haven't seen that yet. I know that that's an item on our agenda, item F, but if we're prepared to consider that in a discussion, we can have that presented, and we'll set a meeting for that going forward. The business grants are a little bit more complicated, and those are going to continue to go through the process, but it looks like there's going to be a shortfall in application request versus available funds, which would then supplement the contingency fund.
Correct.
All
And
right.
the other issue that was involved, we were getting a lot of personal identifiable information, which was not requested by the program and submitted by the applicant. So we needed to, working with IT, they were able to set up
Can you speak in that microphone?
new link for them to provide that information without having it to go through email. So that suspended some of the review of
Right.
the applications.
But now that the pressure's off on some of the others, we're going full speed ahead on the business side.
Yes, there's a couple of issues that we wanted to bring up with the committee regarding the review of the application. I can do that now. I can skip now, or we can wait and follow the order of the.
Well, because of these all blending together, why don't you go ahead and cover that now?
So one of the issues that we've been having with the small business applications is the lack of accurate financials. One of the criteria was that they needed to show a loss of revenue. That loss of revenue is decided on a review of 18 months worth of monthly profit and loss statements. Some of the applicants were very diligent, and they provided that information completely at the initial application submission. Some only provided January through July. Some only provided February through July or March through July. So we needed to go back to each one of those applicants and get that information back to show that loss of revenue. Also, all the IRS deadlines, I believe, should be completed by now. So we needed to also get the most recent IRS filing to make that determination. They fall under the 2.5 million gross revenue that was determined by the CAC to be one of the criteria. So that is a lot of exchange back and forth with the applicant, who does not always have the understanding of the technology of the requests being made, excuse me, of them. So that we've given them a couple of attempts to try to cure the application. Some respond back immediately. Some still don't understand what's being asked of them. Some just don't respond at all. So we work with whomever is diligent in working with the program to get us that information so that we can move them on to the process of eligibility. One thing that I did want to bring up is the way this program is set up. Was set up with a government application in mind, where they submit a application with X amount of dollars for approval to be found eligible. Once they are found eligible, they sign off on a contract. We then ask them for additional documentation and additional Excel budgets to complete, submit back for further review of eligibility to make sure that they fall within the criteria that they had asked for in the initial application. That is a threefold process that, given the immense efforts that has taken the program to get basic information from small business applications, I think we should review the process and ask for all of that documentation upfront. Most of these businesses can meet that $20,000 criteria with their rent, their utilities, or other leasing equipment that they have. Get that information upfront rather than doing it in multiple steps of March through September and October through December. So if we can get them out in one fall swoop, get that information up front, have KEB review the documentation, review the budget, review the application, deem it eligible, we can move it faster through the program than having to go back and ask for multiple layers of documentation. That is what we are proposing.
So, but you already have all the applications in, correct?
Yes, all of those applications.
So are you
in.
suggesting you'd send out a supplemental request to everyone that's applied to provide that information now?
Yes.
I don't think anyone would object to that, because the sooner we get the money out, the better.
Yes, and I think it would, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just wondering, so you say we've got all the applications in. Do you know, is the total requested in excess or close to the 8 million?
For the 121 that have been reviewed, it's almost $4 million. The actual eligible grant amount, 10,000 or 20,000, comes to a little under 1.7 million.
I guess my concern, I know time's of the essence here, but I mean, I'd like to see the entire $8 million go to small businesses. And I know the demand's out there, and I know we counted on the chambers of commerce to kind of get the word out, and what they did or didn't do, I don't know, but it just seems like a lot of people didn't know about this. And, you know, I didn't really see much of anything in the media about it either. So I think I would rather work within the time constraints we have, if possible, to not only move those applications forward and clear things up, but if we can do another round, if that's even humanly possible, to get them out there. I would hate to see that money be thrown back in the contingency fund, knowing that there's businesses out there, the 10,000 businesses in the county, and you know, to have that small amount requested is kind of disappointing. I gotta think it has to come back to people knowing about it. You know, time was short, and we did our best, but I really don't. I don't think that many people knew about it.
Mr. Chairman, Surgis here.
Yes.
I want to concur with Drew. I still have businesses calling me as recent as last Friday saying, can I still get stuff in? I wasn't even aware. So I just wanted to concur there.
All right, I've just on that point, we were methodical in establishing criteria. I've received, and staff has received, concerns and complaints from committee members about applications for people they either know or are in their district. Some are in the process of being approved and have to wait through the process. Some didn't meet the criteria, whether because they didn't submit their application on time, or it was because they had more than the $2.5 million in revenue. And so this committee went through that process in the beginning, using criteria that came from other counties or other entities that were providing similar grants. The level of detail we required was in part due to making sure the requests were genuine and that the businesses provided the criteria that they could establish it. So, I don't know if there's 10,000 small businesses that have less than $2.5 million in revenue here, but, and I've had people that have expressed concerns to me just like they have to you, but the information was out. It was on the website. It was published through the cities. It was published through the chambers of commerce. And obviously now if it's after the fact, I think as a practical matter, if we're going to move forward with any other type of program to supplement what we've done right now, and it may be appropriate to consider something now, and particularly in light of the fact that we have this new shutdown that we're faced with. We'd have to come up with a much more simple program and approach in terms of vetting and getting the criteria out. I did have a discussion on Friday with our consultant to see if they felt that we could do that, and if so, what would be permissible criteria based on the existing federal and state regulations. And I'm waiting to hear back. I expect I'll hear something back either later today or tomorrow. I don't think we can go through another round of applications and from start to finish right now with the same criteria that we had for the original program and expect that would be resolved before the end of the year. So I did talk to a few of the committee members about, and from day one, the committee's been focused on getting business grants out there. Some people pay attention, some don't pay as close attention, but in terms of our constituents about what programs are out there, part of the confusion is that there's so many programs out there that they don't know which is which. I know the state has a program now that they're requesting applications for too, and the criteria for each program is a little bit different. So if it's the will of the committee to look at supplementing the small business program and getting the balance of the funds that were originally allocated out and or adding to those funds with additional monies that we have, I don't have any objection to doing that, but we got to come up with a streamlined program to get that done. Drew?
I would agree, and I apologize. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but I know we have to have this money expended by December. But if time was of the essence, could we set aside a King County Small Business Support Fund and put the money in there and say it's expended and disperse it beyond that date?
No, I think it's got to be used this year.
Okay.
That's the criteria. But I mean, from a very simplistic standpoint, and I know if I make this suggestion, then Cliff, you're going to get 10 more emails with complaints. But to me, the simplest approach would be to say, for example, we know the bars and restaurants are closed, and we know that they employ a significant amount of the population. We know they generate a significant amount of tax revenue, both real estate tax and sales tax revenue. And if we were inclined to be sympathetic to that group, we could have a program that would be very easy to monitor, where we could simply, you could create a criteria for those businesses, and the health department has a roster of who's licensed and who's not. The vetting process would be simple, and we could come up with a dollar amount and say, if you're a food service business that's been shut down, we could provide that. But then, of course, then that could raise complaints from some other types of businesses that wouldn't be included in there, just like the complaints we received from the business that made 2.6 million in revenue as opposed to 2.5. So I'm open for doing it in any way. I'm still waiting for an answer. And what I'm going to suggest is we go back to the not-for-profit discussion is we set up a meeting in the short term, maybe even later this week if schedules will allow, to get through the not-for-profit applications and then get some feedback on what we can do on the business side, hopefully get a better handle on what the remaining applications have to say, and then we can work with staff to figure out where we're going. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, on the timing of your next meeting, I would suggest that it's overly aggressive to go to the end of this week. I'd suggest into next week. Okay, say Wednesday after the election. we're stressed right now getting through the reviews of the not-for-profits. We're shooting to get all those done by Friday. To schedule a meeting, I would just suggest a little bit into next week would be more realistic.
All right, what,
Wait,
Is
Joe,
any-
there's an election?
I understand
He didn't know.
the stress and the cooperation we've got and the stress we've placed on the state's attorney's office and the cooperation we've received. So and I know around election time, your office is tasked with dealing with that as well. I'm not sure whether this state of mind of the committee will be better after the election or before the election.
I just have a
That was a
practical.
joke. I'm just kidding. No. Or an attempted joke. So all right, so we'll pick a date. I mean, I was prepared to do it this Friday or next Monday, but as soon as we can have substantive action, and as long as we're getting a flow of information between now and then, that would be helpful. Now, we can have discussion, even if we don't need action, if there's a reason to put together the parameters of a program between now and then, we can set up a meeting to discuss that if that's what comes back from the consultant. All right. All right. So you're saying that by a week from Wednesday, that would be the best time to be able to finish up the not-for-profits?
Correct. We would anticipate a vote by the committee at that point to approve the applications and disbursements.
All right.
Right.
And, okay, let's talk about the existing business grants that are in the pipeline. 121 have been vetted. There's a similar number or a little bit more that still remain to be vetted. What's the time frame for completion of those?
To prioritize, we're working through the municipal applications and the specific emails that are going to go out this week. We're working through the non-for-profits to finalize those. There are 2 municipal applications that came back with amended amounts of a little over 21,000 that we need to prepare for the CAC to review and to pass on to the county board. We are also considering the smaller units of government as well. So we're looking at about 100 applications that need to be looked at with specific information and provided to you. Those will, as we can get to them, we will. What we will do is we will revert to the same review process that we did for the non-for-profits, letting the consultant look at them, making sure that they're eligible before they're sent off to the consultant, and then come back with specific documentation that we need. Again, that documentation is the financials, the 18 months of financials that we need from everybody.
But what's a reasonable time frame for that?
I would say by
I just got an email saying disregard the email. So I don't know.
John, may I say something while she's looking?
Yes.
Wednesday is executive committee. Now, would any of this have to be approved through executive and then go to the full county board in November?
all of the documents, all the applications are vetted, are finally, they have a final review by the CAC, and then they move on to the county board. So we need to be able to schedule these accordingly so that the CAC looks at them.
The ideal sequence of events is we meet, then we move items on to exec, and then exec moves them onto the full board. We have had flexibility and placeholders on the committee, on the full board for resolutions that came through, whether they're, I don't want to say last minute, but if they're going through the normal course. So I understand, the sooner the better.
By the 16th, they should be done with the review, where both the consultant and the program has looked at them.
Okay. All right, so that's the business side of it. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am very nervous about the timeline that we're left with. Having said that, we need to do what's necessary, whatever's necessary to get these funds allocated. So my question is about remaining budget to do that. The chairman has asked a couple of different ways. I asked the last time we met, where are we with respect to budget for the consultant to get the work done, and what is left to do what's necessary to get these funds out, not just before the year is end, but before this board turns over?
That has not been a priority, but it is being worked on. The state's attorney and the consultant have been submitting their professional fees to the program for review of the finance department. So that is something that we're working on right now. Please keep in mind that we have until December 30th to spend, but we expect that supporting documentation, the follow-up, to happen sometime into mid-January, late January. There's still, that money is not lost on December 30th. We still have a wiggle room to pull that information out and then pay out. But it is preferred to have that amount out in the open so that we can reallocate whatever funds are left over into other programs or back into back to the county.
And one follow-up question, if I can, and maybe this is better for Mr. Lomas. So we're being billed by the hour?
We're being billed by the hour by the consultant. I don't have a particular number for you, but I have seen the invoices coming in from the consultant. We're well within the budget. A budget consideration is not really a problem insofar as the administration of the program. I can have a number for you at the next meeting, an exact number, but that is not an issue at this point.
The consultant, as we've provided them information, has been very prompt in their turnaround. Right
Correct.
now, the only thing that is, the consultant is working through with the sheriff and the health department as we provide them the information on those non-payroll items.
Correct.
The consultant will be working as we give them the information on the business grant vetting. And the consultants already looked at least preliminarily, the qualification of the not-for-profits. So
correct.
That I don't think we're over budget there. Actually, the area where we may be entitled to get more reimbursement from the county's perspective is our staff time in going through this process. But certainly we can get information as to where we're at. Why don't we do this? If finance can, or someone through your office can remind the committee as to what the contract amount was with our consultant and where we're at to date, I think everyone
Certainly.
can sleep better.
Sure.
All right. And, we're going to do our best to get as much as we can done before the end of the term of the existing committee. That was the goal in the beginning, but there is going to be follow-up work to be done by the next board. So, right. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I think I probably misunderstood this, but I think that statement was just made that we have like wiggle room after December 30th. I think I heard to bring information in and then to distribute money. I'm under the impression that that is not how those regulations work at all from other counties. So can you clarify, did I hear right or did I just?
We're not
was I mistaken?
expecting anybody to submit their final documentation on December 30th. We understand that that's a holiday season. People may not be around to submit that, but what we get with supporting documentation for the December 30th date is what we will process in January to close out the grant.
Okay, that is a huge assumption, and I have seen no place in this entire 6 months, 5-6 months, that we have that. But I could be mistaken.
No, I was working under the assumption that we'll be making all the disbursements this year, within this calendar year. And
They will be allocated, but to get the supporting documentation and to close out and to make the disbursement is still going to take some time after December 30th.
Well, we've got time to talk about that, but let's have a specific discussion and we'll get back to you to answer that question.
Yes.
All right. All right, so in terms of resolutions that would come from this committee today, then, Mr. Lelvis, I don't think we have any formal resolutions, but the expectation would be that we would have resolutions for the full board to vote on as it relates to the potential, well, the not-for-profits, number one,
Correct.
and the potentially a different business program should we choose to consider one.
Correct.
All right. Are there any other questions of the committee? Mr. Fraz?
I just have a question going back to the business, looking at this chart that we received here. It says that the amount of small business apps submitted was 3,999,100, and the amount eligible was 1.68 million.
That's to date.
That's to date. So just so I know, are you saying that the balance between those two didn't meet the criteria, or they just haven't been processed yet?
They're over the criteria. Everybody either gets 10 or 20, and they still need to be reviewed by the consultant. So they are eligible up to 20,000. Most have submitted well over the $20,000 grant amount.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just a question. Question on, let's see, are we through the A through G on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, you asked for other questions. Question, I was thinking that under G, I wasn't sure exactly what that was referring to, but I was wondering if that was the VIA. The VIA was passed, according to the minutes that we just approved at the beginning of the meeting, by a roll call of the last meeting here, 5-0. Unfortunately, that did not make it through into the amendments that were drafted and approved by the board at the board meeting. So maybe Mr. Lelvis can fill in the blanks of what occurred there, because we still have to act on that. And information went out to the president of the Valley Industrial Association saying that the application process has been amended and VIA application is both an eligible applicant and in the queue for processing. They're in the queue for processing, but I cannot find anywhere in the amendment. And so that's misinformation out to this member of our community.
Yes, I can. The Valley Amendment was first addressed in a colloquy at the last executive committee meeting between Chairman Hoshite, Chairman Lausen. Chairman Lausen specifically declined to have that resolution sent back to this committee, saying that he wanted to retain that directly to the county board from the executive committee. It was only sent back to this committee for your discussion. The resolution itself never came back to this committee with the authority to send it forward. Chairman Lausen specifically maintained control of that resolution and was responsible for sending that directly to the county board. It appears it did not make it to the county board for whatever reasons. Obviously, this committee approved it. The executive committee approved it. My suggestion is there's a simple fix. Simply put it on the county board agenda for the next county board. It was an administrative oversight that it never made it last month, but that doesn't have any impact on VIA. So it's a simple fix. Put it on the county board agenda.
No one here has objection to that happening, do they?
Right. Oh, no, but that's a gross misstatement. And according to the record, it's a gross misstatement of history. If, Blair, if you could put up the 2 slides. The minutes that you endorsed today says this, that the chairman, Hoshite, started the
Chairman
discussion.
of the committee, I'm going to exercise my prerogative to move on with this.
Oh, no,
If
a
you have
statement was
personal-
made.
If you have a personal challenge you want to undertake with a
No.
member of staff, do so. The committee, this can be put on the full board without having to
No.
go through a diatribe here.
No,
As
no,
chairman of the committee, quite frankly, I find it offensive.
no,
when you
it's
put
not a matter.
slides on the
That
board.
is a lie.
If you've
What
got
you were
slides
just
that you want to
told.
submit to the board committee, submit them to the chairman for review before.
Check out the day after executive committee.
I'm going to
You had
entertain
a
a
CAC
motion to
committee.
adjourn the committee, the meeting.
So
Mr.
moved.
Fraz moves. Is there a second? Mr. Hanson seconds. Clerk,
Elijah.
please call the roll.
Hanson,
Yes, please.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
We are adjourned. I will follow up with information to the committee. We may end up having a meeting before next Wednesday, but also we'll notice up a meeting for next Wednesday at 3 o'clock if no one has objection to that. And if we have substantive business that we can deal with before then, I'll set up a meeting maybe for this Friday. Thank you.
Hi.